My father, when I was a child, I always asked you for one pencil. And my sister always asked you for one pencil. And your little pocket could afford only one pencil. So you bought one, cut one into two equal halves, and always gave my sister the lower half, the one without erasure, and always gave me the upper one, the one with the erasure. The one with the erasure? Father, did you already know that I was going to make so many mistakes in my life? Thank you. As a child, I always thought that my father is a rich man. I still think that my father is a rich man. Actually, I think my father is the richest man in the world. Bill Gates does not have as handsome son as my father has. The reason why I thought my father is a rich man was my father always had more than 1 rupee in his pocket. Always more than 1 rupee. And all I ever needed was 1 rupee on Tuesday, so that I could buy ice pop, rato baraf, if you remember, on Tuesday. That's all I wanted. And I also believed as a child that my father loves me a lot. And there was one more reason for that. And the reason was, I had 2 dreams. Dream 1, I always wanted to listen to songs on radio and dance. And my father always made sure that I was drying those cell batteries in the sun so that they are recharged, and again I could put that into the radio and we could listen to songs. And the next dream was, as I just told you, to lick that ice pop on Tuesday in Tuesday special market. So I believed my father loves me a lot. So I had a father who loves me a lot and who is the richest man on earth. Until this one day. 22 years ago, I was 9 years old, and me and my father went to the market, the Tuesday special market. And I said, Father, 1 rupee. And he said, wait. I said, why? Because I always believed my father had more than 1 rupee. I said, wait, I'll give you. I'm sure I'll give you, but wait. Guess what? I waited. Because I knew my father loves me. And even back then, as a child, I knew if the one who loves you asks you to wait, you should wait. Do you know that now? I waited. And I believed that my father had a special plan for me. While waiting, something was happening in that market. A new game was introduced called Carrom Board. That one. And everybody were playing. Actually, there were 4 players playing it. But there were so many people cheering up and enjoying it. And there was a game that they newly introduced called marriage in Carrom Board. Back then I was confused why they started with marriage game, you know. And now I can understand that marriage is few people struggling and the rest of the people cheering up. I was watching that and something pretty beautiful happened. And that was among those 4 players. One just ordered an ice pop from the cellar, and he started licking it, you know. And I told you, all I wanted in my life then was Tuesday to come so that I could lick that ice pop, that rato baraf. And he was licking it like he was the king. And I waited for that, and something pretty new happened. That was like, when he was licking it, the one who was selling started playing his damaru, you know, and that sound started to hit my ears so hard, and I felt like, I want to taste it right now. And I ran to my father and said, Father, I need the ice pop now. That's why I need 1 rupee now. And my father said, I'll give you, but I can't give you now. I said, why? Because I don't have it. And I said, check your pocket. And I knew my father always carried a pocket calendar. And he checked his pocket and said, okay, I'll show you. Take a look at this. And he checked, and he said, look, I told you. There's no money. But I looked, I found there 1 rupee note, a very new one. And I said, Father, there is 1. Give that to me. My father said, I can't give this to you. This is bumo. very auspicious money. I cannot give. And I said, no, I need it now. And that sound of that that was coming louder in my ear. It was like, I was asking for it, and he didn't say a thing. He remained silent. He said, wait for me. He spoke that a bit louder. Like, I felt like he was scolding me. And I came back to the same place where that man was licking ice pop and looking at that. That was for the first time I felt that my father is not rich. That was for the first time I felt that my father does not love me because he did not give me something he had. I had seen that 1 rupee. And I looked at that man who was licking it, and from that ice pop, the drops of ice were falling on. He was not controlling that. He didn't know it. From my eyes, my tears were falling, and I didn't want to control. And I looked at the man and my father, looked at that man and my father. My father saw that. Maybe. And he called me. And I was really scared, like, is he again going to scold me for coming back again? And he said, take this. And that was for the first time my father gave me 1 rupee and did not look into my eyes. And his hands were shivering when he gave me that. I still remember the picture so vividly that he gave me 1 rupee for the first time with his shivering hands and didn't look at me. I looked at my father's eyes. I never saw my father like that before. But I didn't care, I guess, because that sound was hitting me. And I caught that 1 rupee, ran towards that person, bought that, and stood in front of that person who was licking it before with this pride, because this was my time now. I licked it as if now I am the king. But when it was done, there's this little stick of bamboo at the end of it, and still some sweetness. I was still licking it, and that was over. Suddenly I remember something. I remember my mom. Once I had asked my mom for 1 rupee, and she had said, I don't have. And in mom's thaili, there was 1 rupee. And I said, give me that. And my mom had told me, that's dumo, the auspicious money. I said, so what? Give me that. And my mom had told me, if you spend this, the only amount of money left, this is going to bring disaster in your family, in our family. So I cannot give you that. I suddenly felt, God, did I just spend my father's dumo, the most auspicious money, which is going to bring disaster to my family? And I thought, is that radio not going to work now anymore? I was like, oh God, this is a crime I've just committed. And I thought, I need to give this 1 rupee back to my father. And in my family, there's one more person who was rich, I thought. My aunt, who also used to give me 1 rupee on Tuesday. I ran towards her, and she looked at me and said that, are you in a hurry? I said, yeah. So, okay, under the pillow, pick 1 rupee note and go. And I ran toward the pillow and picked that 1 rupee. I was so happy that I'm going to give that money back to my father, and no more sin, all sins will be forgotten, and I'll be a clean guy. And I caught that rupee, and when I was about to run, I saw something else. I saw beside that 1 rupee note, there's so many other notes, 100, 20, 50, 500. Something struck in my head. That was, this 1 rupee that I'm carrying now is not equal to that 1 rupee. Because this 1 rupee is from so many other rupees. And that was the only rupee my father had. And then I can realize my father loves me a lot. He gave me the last thing he had. That day I realized if someone loves you, he's going to give you the last thing he has. And while I was returning home, I thought, I cannot give this 1 rupee to him. I need to do something else. And that day as a son, I decided, one day I'll earn 100 rupees and I'll give it to my father. That'll be the answer to that 1 rupee. And I worked hard, people. I worked hard. I worked a lot. I worked in that field in summer season, plucking the right seedlings. Biu kaadnu, we said, eksai mutha kaadeko 30 rupiah and all that. I worked hard a lot until the hair of my knees go down. But I couldn't make 100. Next year, couldn't make 100. So the year I could make 100, I had already thought that this 100 is less, because that was the only amount he had, and that was something great. And when I could make 100, I thought, one day I'll make 1,000, and I'll give this back to my father. And then I worked hard, but could never make that 1,000, until I was doing my graduation. And when I was doing my graduation, I got a job in a private school in a village. And my first month's salary was 1,800. 1,800 might sound less, but then 1,800 means 1,000 plus 800. And that 1,000 that I could give to my father. And while during that one month of time, I used to write certain things. I had written that I would buy an Oxford Advanced Learner's Dictionary for myself, because I had this infatuation thing for English back then. And I'd also written that I'll buy Odne, a scarf, for my mom. And the day I got the salary, I caught my cycle and reached to Birtamur, a city close to me, and bought an Oxford Advanced Learner's Dictionary, came back and bought Odne for my mom. But by then, I'd already spent more than 1,000. The money that was left with me was less than 1,000. So I couldn't give to my father. And I thought, I'll work hard next month, you know? And by next month, because I'd already spent 18,000, I had the experience of spending 1,800. So I thought, 1,000 for that 1 rupee, which my father gave me with his shivering hands and not even looking at my face? No. So there was this sadness and ego mixed up and said, one day, I'll make 10,000 rupees from my 1 month salary or from one work that I do, and I'll pay that to my father. And I was staying in Jhapa back then. I could never make the last salary before I came to Kathmandu for my master's was 3,500. So not 10,000. Came to Kathmandu, did my master's, and the first job I got was Olympia World School, where now I am the head of the English department. And they offered me the salary that was 9,000. 9,000 was not 10,000 people. It's 1,000 shy of 10,000. And I thought, and you know, I'd already told that I'm going to give that 10,000, which is my either one month salary or something that I get from my one work. I worked hard, worked a lot, but could never make 10,000. And during that time, a few months have already passed. And I thought, 10,000 is too less for that 1 rupee, which my father gave me with his shivering hands and not even looking at my face. I thought, one day, I'll earn 1 lakh for my one work or for my 1 month salary and give to my father. Only that can pay. And I worked hard, but in Kathmandu, I could not make 1 lakh per month. I thought, I'm never going to make money that's enough to pay my father's back. And something happened to me. I stopped listening to music. I've given up licking up the ice puff. I was not liking what I was getting. I was not liking who I was becoming. Nothing was going good. Suddenly magic happened. Magic. I fell in love. I fell in love with words. I fell in love with words. I fell in love with poetry. I fell in love with performance. And I said, and the guy, if you fall in love, you'll discover somebody inside you so special that you never knew existed before. So I discovered that man inside me, and that man has so much faith that I'm going to pay my dream. And I told my friends that one day, through poetry, I'm going to make 1 lakh for my one show. I'm going to pay my father. Nobody believed. They said, come on, bro, it's poetry. You perform for free, and if you need to publish a book, you need to pay for that. And it has never happened in poetry before. But guys, I was in love, I told you. And if lovers believes in something, you know, it's going to happen. So I said, guys, what did you say? Could you repeat that? And they said, it hasn't happened in Nepali poetry before. Never in Nepali poetry that any poet has earned through performance lakhs of rupees. And I said, in Nepali poetry, I was not there before. You know, just arrived. And then, because I believed that something that hasn't happened does not mean will never happen. That's the right time, the right choice for you to make that happen. And I published my book called Sagarmathaको Gairai, which also got one of the most prestigious prize in literature. And thank you. And as I told you, if you love and if a lover believes it's going to happen, whatever a lover believes to happen. And I started to get calls to perform poetry in poetry concerts. And I performed in Australia, I performed in Europe, I performed in Middle East, and so many countries, and so many cities in Nepal. And I had so many lakhs with me through poetry. And you know what? From those so many lakhs, I had 1 lakh. So I ran to my father. I flew to my father, to be honest. I flew to my father. His father was waiting for me, like always. And I stayed in my house for a while. And then the last day, when I was about to return, and I need to tell my father that I'm here to return that 1 lakh. And my mom was sitting right beside me, and that was my father. And I said, Father, I want to give you something. And he said, what? Do you remember that 1 rupee that you given to me years before? And he said, yes, I do. And I said, I cannot pay you, but I want to pay that a little bit. And my father has a greatest sense of humor, I know. You must have guessed looking at his son so far. My father said, son, that 1 rupee 22 years ago, its value had changed now, you know. It's something like 1 lakh now. And my mom laughed along with my father, both of them, husband and wife, looking at each other, and come on. They thought that I'm going to give him that 1 rupee note. They're laughing out loud. And I was like, slowly, got my bag, and from that bag, I got that 1 rupee, 1 lakh. And my father was laughing out loud, like, oh, it's like 1 lakh, son, come on. And he was laughing, and I gave him that. I was like, and when I gave him that 1 lakh, for the second time, my father's hands were shivering. He didn't look at me. And he caught that, and he put that in his right pocket, and he pressed that with his right hand. And he said a few things, which I could not understand, because I was looking into his eyes. His eyes were exactly those eyes 22 years ago. And I could not understand my father, who is right-handed, why is he pressing here and using his left hand? And my mom told me, son, your father worked hard for 52 years as a farmer, and this is for the first time in his pocket, he has 1 lakh of his own. And 2 lines were echoing in my ears. I heard my mom say, "म छु जस्तो लागेको दिन, म तिमीलाई सम्झिन्छु. मर्छु जस्तो लागेको दिन, म तिमीलाई सम्झिन्छु."